Hello and welcome back. My name is Dr. Christopher Gennari. This is the Great Big History Podcast. In this episode, we talk about what happened to the Assyrians. When we left off, and hopefully this will be a short episode, relatively short episode, but when we left off, we were talking about terrorism. The Assyrians invent what we called state-sponsored terrorism, where the country itself commits terror on other peoples. It destroyed Babylon. Now, Babylon will be rebuilt because it's a major trade center, but they wrecked the place. They went in and they wrecked it. It takes a generation for it to recover, to rebuild. They obliterated, exterminated 85% of Hebrews. The 10 lost tribes of Israel. They're gone. And just to put that into perspective, that is more than Hitler could ever have imagined doing. Like, what the Assyrians did in reality is more than what the Holocaust could even try to do. Because so many Jews, by the 20th century, they're obviously Jews, lived in America, lived in the Middle East, lived in places that they didn't own. So they couldn't have exterminated them. That doesn't mean they wouldn't have wanted to try. It's just that, given the reality of the 20th century Europe, they couldn't do what the Assyrians did. So that's just to give you an order of magnitude. It's not to say the Nazis were good people. In fact, it's to tell you just how bad they were. That as bad as you think they are, they still didn't live up to what the Assyrians actually could do to people. What the Assyrians actually did. So they obliterate the 10 tribes. They invade Egypt and take over Egypt for a little while. And you have to remember, Egypt is hard to get to. Egypt is hard to control because it's across 2 deserts. It is hard for Mesopotamians to own Egypt because it's so isolated from the world. So, when we left off, we were talking about terrorism because the way the Assyrians run their empire is through terror. And there's advantages in that. You get what you want without violence. Now, you have to commit violence in the beginning because there needs to be, for terrorism to be terrorism, there has to be a credible threat of violence. When you say, I am going to beat you up, people have to think you can do it, and you will do it. 2, the idea is to get people to police themselves, to have order, to get it to run the way you want. You say, you do this or else. And people say, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. You don't have to make me, I'll do it. That allows a relatively small people. The Assyrians are not huge. They're relatively small people. They live up in the sticks, up in the northern Tigris. This is not Babylon. They're not Babylonians. These are not Sumerians. These are not Egyptians. They don't live in a place that's full of food, that's full of people. Like, this was the sticks until the Assyrians made it the capital. It's still the sticks. This is where ISIS will be born. This is the land between Syria, the cities of Syria, Damascus and Antioch, and the cities of the lower Tigris and Euphrates, of Mesopotamia. This is in the borderlands, way up in the north, between Asia Minor, Mesopotamia, and the Levant, which is the coast of Mesopotamia, the coast of the Middle East. The Levant is spelled Levant. And finally, the image of you can be bigger than the reality. Like, the people think the Assyrians are tougher than they really are, because they are tough. There's no doubt that they are tough. But they think they can do things the image becomes way bigger. The Old Testament is a good example of this. The siege of Jerusalem, which in 707, Sennacherib lays siege to Jerusalem. And this is the closest, in reality, the Hebrews ever came to being completely exterminated as a people. This is it. This was the moment. He lays siege to the city. And the story, there's several stories about this in the Old Testament. This is how scared the Judeans were of this, that they wrote it down several different places in throughout the books of the Old Testament. But one of the stories is we finally defeated Sennacherib because God sent down angels who sent down plagues that killed 120,000 of their men. Now think about that. Think about what that says. Now you can read it on the surface and say, that says God protected us. And that's cool. And that's what it's supposed to say. That's what it does say. That God protected you from being destroyed like your cousins, the Israelites. That when the chips were down, God had your back. But it also tells you a lot about the Assyrians. The first is it tells you what defeated the Assyrians? Not the Hebrews, not men, not armies. It took God and plagues and destruction from the all-powerful being to defeat the Assyrians. 2, they killed 120,000. How big is this army? A typical army of the ancient world was 30 to 40,000. Because that's as big as you could get to feed people. Now, we'll talk about the Persians, who are going to be different. And they're the exception. But a typical army, even a typical Assyrian army, is 30, 40,000 people. Because that's as big as you can get. And still feed these people and not be overwhelmed by poop. Logistics is a problem. A Roman army is only 5,000 people. Now, they will combine legions to do so. But a Roman army is expected to be 5,000 people. A American division is 5 to 10,000 people. And that's considered to be completely an independent organization capable of doing this job. So armies are relatively small. 30 to 40,000 people sounds like a lot, but that doesn't fill a football stadium. It's a little big for a hockey stadium, but it doesn't fill a football stadium, and that's your army. So if they're writing down, if the Hebrews are writing down that they killed 120,000, God killed 120,000, and that wasn't all of them, that means the Assyrians could have an army. And they don't. This is all exaggeration, and we know it's exaggeration, but the idea of the story makes the image bigger than the reality, is that the idea is the Assyrians had an army that was 4 times the size of a normal army and probably 6 times the size of whatever the Hebrews could put together. The Hebrews are not putting together a 30,000 person army. That's bigger than the size of Jerusalem. So there's no way the Hebrews are putting 30,000 men in arms and then marching them 900 miles anywhere. And remember where Nineveh is. It's at the top of the Tigris and Euphrates. It's way to the north of where Israel and Jerusalem is. And so it says God defeated them. They have a massive army. And we still had to pay them to leave. Like, even after killing 120,000, that army is still there, and it leaves on its own. The Hebrews do not go out and fight it and defeat it and celebrate a giant victory. No, 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 no. They stay in their walls, and they negotiate a payment to Sennacherib to go away. So, killing 120,000 just leveled the playing field. It didn't even give you victory. That tells you just how scared the Hebrews are of the Assyrians, just how terrified, just how big they were, just how strong they were. And that's number 3. The image of them was bigger than the reality. What's the disadvantage of this? And the disadvantage of this is everyone hates you. Everybody hates you. And I mean Herman Melville, Captain Ahab, White Whale hate. To the last I grapple with thee. From hell's heart I stab at thee. For hate's sake I spit my last breath at thee. Everyone hates you. Viscerally hates you. How many of you are sad that Osama bin Laden got shot 4 times in the face? You all should be sad. I'm sad. I'm a New Yorker. I'm from the suburbs of New York. I have been in those big buildings. I was at the top of those big buildings. I walked by those big buildings. I had friends in those buildings that Osama bin Laden attacked. And I'm sad he got shot 4 times in the face. Why? Why? Because think about what that means. What does that mean for Osama bin Laden? That means there's a little bit of scared as you hear all this stuff going on and a couple of gunshots and whatnot underneath. And then the door opens and you see a flash of light. Maybe you register that there's a flashlight and then nothing. Gone. You're dead. It's over. Is that what you want? I'm a New Yorker. I want him captured, brought to New York, tied to a chair in Times Square, right underneath the Cup of Noodles sign, so that everybody in New York could line up, and Washington, D.C., and whoever was on those planes and who was ever related to the people who were on those planes in Pennsylvania, to walk up, stand in line, and punch him in the face. And just punch him in the face. And punch him in the face. Punch him in the face. For hundreds and thousands and millions of people to just punch him in the face. Why? What? Why does he get off easy? A flash of light and gone? That's terrorism. That's the disadvantage of it. People hate you. They hate you viscerally in their bones. They cannot abide you. The big Lebowski can abide. You cannot abide a terrorist. You hate terrorists. And so what happens to the Assyrians? What happens to the Assyrians is what they did to other people. They got obliterated. Now, how does this happen? Well, what we have is a homeostatic system. Homeo, H-O-M. E-O? Or just O? No, it's got to be E-O because H-O-M-O is man. H-O-M-E-O. Static. S-T-A-T-I-C. Homeostatic system. That means it's self-regulating. Your body is a homeostatic system. Your car engine is a homeostatic system. You go in, you put your key in the ignition, you turn it, it works. You go to sleep, you get up in the morning, your body works. But as you know, if you've ever had kids, you know this. If you've ever been a kid, you know this. And if you've ever had a car, eventually you will know this. The system breaks down. It stops working. Homeostatic systems break down for one of 2 reasons. Something from the inside, something from the outside. So something from the inside. Cancer. Right? Your own cells start to replicate in an uncontrolled way. That's cancer. 2. Something from the outside. Your friend has chickenpox, you get chickenpox. Any of you who want to be teachers will know this, that the moment one kid goes, it goes right through the entire class. Right through. Everyone's going to be sick. It goes right through. And so that's outside, because the germs had to come from outside your body, from outside the class. So what happens? Well, the Assyrians were very good, extremely good, at maintaining an internal homeostatic system. Nobody, not Babylon, not Egypt, was going to rise against them. What happened was an external change happened, and that was nomadic horse peoples. Nomadic horse peoples from Central Asia, the Medes and their little cousins, the Persians, came over the Caucasus Mountains into the Middle East and did what nomadic peoples do. They put their hands on their hips and they said, "We are here for stuff. Give us your stuff." And the people said, yeah, Mr. Nomads, you don't know how this works. We're at Mesopotamia. We know you come in, you ride around our walls, you do all that stuff. Well, that was the old days. The Assyrians have taken all of our stuff. They have it all. Oh, and we will help you get it back. Are these Assyrians tough? Yeah, they're real tough. Well, they haven't seen median tough. Where are they? Send us up there. Let us go and find them. And so everybody revolts. This is Babylon. Babylon's like Oprah in 614 BC. You want money? You need weapons? You need chariots? You need stuff to help revolt? You get the stuff, and you get a revolution. You get a revolution. You get a revolution. Anybody who showed up and said, like Oliver, "Can I please have some more?" Babylon was like, "More? Here's a ton. I'll give you everything. I've got the money. Here, have horses. You need horses? Have horses. Everybody needs horses? Get the horses. Get the chariots." Everybody revolted. Now, the Medes and the Persians have an advantage, because they can ride horses. They are cavalry. They can ride horses. Mesopotamians couldn't do that. They didn't have the horses big enough. They still used chariots. Chariots need flat ground. Cavalry is an all-terrain vehicle. It can go anywhere. And so the Medes and the Persians have this advantage over the Assyrians. And the Babylonians lead the revolt. Now, remember, what the Babylonians have is infantry, men on foot. They have chariots too, but they have men on foot who can stab people, right? So again, gives the Medes and the Persians weight. And what you get is a series of battles that the Assyrians lose, culminating in the Battle of Nineveh, 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 the Battle of Nineveh. And it is the total destruction of the Assyrians. This is, and I mean this literally, the First World War. Everyone in the world who matters in the Mesopotamian world, as they understood it, as they drew the map, everyone in the world participated in this. Yes, I know India is out there doing its thing, and China is way out there doing its thing. I'm totally with you. But as people in the Middle East understood the world, this was the First World War. Everyone participates in it. And here's the thing. It was everybody versus the Assyrians. Everybody versus the Assyrians. Because they hate the Assyrians. And the Battle of Nineveh is, the way I have it in the PowerPoint is the Battle of Minas Tirith, because it's the only video I could find with a still of something that shows just how size. Nineveh is a big city. But the army that's laid siege to it is a massive army. And while in Lord of the Rings, the Battle of Minas Tirith, the good guys are on the inside and the bad guys are on the outside. It's the opposite in reality. The good guys are on the outside trying to break in. And it takes them a couple months to do it, but they finally do it. And then they go through the streets, and what you have is basically the Battle of Berlin, a street by street by street battle for the end of the world. The Assyrian king will kill himself in the middle of it, light himself on fire in a big blaze of glory. It is the total destruction. They obliterate the city step by step. Because you have to remember, if you're a small Phoenician city and you're fighting, where are you fighting in Nineveh too? You're fighting to the war memorial dedicated to your destruction 100 years ago, to great grandpa. And you're going to get there. And when you get there, you're going to tear down that statue. Like Iraqis tore down the statue of Saddam Hussein. What you get is this street by street by street. What the Soviets did, the famous Soviets, now a GIF you see on YouTube or Tumblr, but this famous Soviet movie of the Soviets blowing up giant Nazi symbols in Berlin. That's the total destruction, street by street by street, murdering every Assyrian you could get your hands on. Why? Because they had done it to you and they had enjoyed it. And now this is payback. And what you get is a total obliteration of the Assyrians. Like, the Assyrians don't exist anymore. They don't exist. The Assyrians ceased to exist. Now, there are people in the world who claim they're Assyrian. That's not these people. There's nobody, none of them left. None of these people are left. They're gone. They are gone to such a point that when Xenophon, a Greek general, a Greek warrior, general, philosopher, student of Socrates, goes marching through with the 10,000 on his way to fight. He's a mercenary for the Persian king. On his way, he crosses Nineveh, this giant city where nobody lives, a city of ghosts, of giants, of dogs baying and wolves baying in the night. And he asked the farmers, what giants lived here? And they don't know. Like, literally, they are wiped out from history. They cease to exist. If we were to do this class in 1800, 1750, I would tell you, all right, we're going to talk about the Assyrians, and they're mentioned in several places in the Old Testament, but they're just a symbol. They're not real. Nobody was this bad. So the Hebrew writers, in their infinite wisdom, made up the Assyrians in order to be a punishment, just like the plagues of Moses on the Egyptians. It's just a literary device to teach young people to not be bad, because old people are constantly teaching young people not to be bad, because young people are constantly doing things that are freaking out old people. And so this is what that is. The Assyrians don't really exist. We have no records of them existing. Well, that was because 1750, the Middle East is still pretty locked up, locked away, unknown for Europeans. Two was we couldn't read cuneiform. You simply couldn't read it. The writings of of people of this era. And three, nobody was this bad. Nobody could be as bad as the Jews in the Old Testament were saying they were. Just no, you can't run an empire that way. Nobody was. So if we were to do this in 1750, I would have told you it's a story. It's an illusion. It's not, not only is it not history, it's not even chronology. It didn't happen. Turns out in the 20th century, linguists and classicists broke the code of cuneiform and started to read it. And not only did they read what the Babylonians then wrote about the Assyrians, they were then able to translate what the Assyrians wrote about them themselves. And historians went, oh my God, not only are they as bad as the Hebrews say, they're worse. Because the Hebrews didn't have all the information. They're even worse than what the Hebrews say. And so the Assyrians were so bad, they got wiped away from history. They ceased to exist in the memory of people. That's how bad they were. So what happened to the world? Well, the Assyrian Empire broke into 4 parts. Well, actually, it breaks into 3 parts, really. And then there's a 4th part that's new. And that's the Iranian Plateau. That's Iran. That's where the Medes and the Persians will settle. See, the problem for the Medes and the Persians is the world as they understood it. They just walked into this world. They don't understand it at all. And what they see is a world full of people. And they don't want a world full of people. They're not city people. They're horse people. And so they look around for a good horse country, and they find it on the Iranian Plateau. South of the Caspian Sea, east of the Tigris, between what is today Iran and Afghanistan, the high plateau of Afghanistan that leads through the mountains into the passes that lead through the mountains to Central Asia. This is what they looked at and said, this is a good horse country. This is good for us. Not the best for large urban civilizations, right? There's no massive rivers going through it before you get to the Oxus in Bactria, and so which becomes the border, and so it's good horse country. It's good for them, and so you get the Medes. Asia Minor became the land of the Lydians. Different peoples, when that broke up, different peoples fought each other, and the people who will win are the Lydians, the people who invent coins. Third is, of course, Babylon, Mesopotamia, the Babylonians. Now we differentiate them from Hammurabi's Babylonians by calling them the Neo-Babylonians or the Chaldeans. Chaldean, something like that. The Chaldeans. But for all intents and purposes, they're Babylon. It's the new Babylonian structure. Whoever it is, it's like the Who. Meet the old boss, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. And then there's Egypt. So we have, because Egypt is the richest place on earth, or Egypt is Egypt. So we have the Medes in Iran, the Lydians in Asia Minor, the Babylonians in Mesopotamia, and the Egyptians in Egypt. And what do these guys do for the next 75 years? They fight each other. They fight each other. They fight each other. They fight each other. And who wins? The Persians. What? Wait, what? The Persians? The little cousins? The people who don't matter? Who are so insignificant? They're in the small lower right-hand corner of this empire, and they're technically owned by the Medes, told what to do by the Medes, because they're the little cousin? Yes. The Persians are going to be the winners, and they are going to unite. Again, the Persians will conquer the world. They will unite the world as they understand it. They will not only unite the world as they understand it, they will add to it by conquering India. They will go beyond the world as they understand it and conquer India. And the Persians are going to be our next topic. The Persians are going to be the most successful, massive empire, the largest empire in the Mesopotamian world. They will be the richest. They will own 25% of all of humanity. And they will be considered good guys. They will be considered good leaders. Even the Greeks called the king of Persia the great king. One is a sense of his power, but also the other is kind of like he's great, you know. He's not the jerk king of Persia, he's the great king. For a reason. And we're going to talk about that reason in our next lecture. So, we talk about terrorism, we talk about destruction, we talk about what terrorism gets you, and now we're going to talk about what happens next. The next great empire, the Persian Empire. Thank you. Take care.